Richard Legutko accused fellow MEPs of wanting to usurp all the essential powers of the EU member states and reduce the national institutions to ornamental function. Radical reform of the treaties which bind the EU together represents a constitutional coup d'état, aimed at creating a dystopian superstate, furious critics have claimed. And Polish MEP Professor Ryszard Legutko had scathing words for his lamentable colleagues as he contrasted what he called the government to rule the entire continent, with their inability to get hot water in Louis Weiss building, the seat of the European Parliament in Strasbourg. The Parliament today narrowly approved a report prepared by 5 MEPs, including Brexit nemesis Guy Verhofstadt after last year's conference on the future of Europe. The idea will need to be ratified by the European Council meeting next month before the changes are introduced. Proposals include the creation of a defense union, an energy union, and removing of the right of veto for individual member states in multiple areas. Fellow Polish MEP Jacek Saryusz-Wolski, who served alongside the other 5 as the co-reporter for the group of European conservatives and reformists, quit his role earlier this year in protest at what was being proposed. Commenting on today's plenary vote, during which 291 MEPs voted to approve the plan, 274 votes against it, and 44 abstained. Mr. Saryusz-Wolski said, "God save the European Union from self-destruction. The almost complete abolition of unanimity and the right of veto in 63 cases would lead to a constitutional coup d'état to create a dystopian superstate, instead of the EU, and degrade member states to regions. All this is happening under the false pretext of preparing for enlargement, but the only significant veto left is the veto against enlargement. This is a Himalaya of hypocrisy. The adoption of the proposals ought to serve as a wake-up call for anyone who truly cared about the future of the EU and democracy in general." Mr. Saryusz-Wolski speaking in the largely empty chamber, he said, "We must defend the EU treaties and the EU itself against the emergence of a superstate. Defend the Christian-inspired Schumanian Europe of sovereign states against the transformation of the EU into a communist superstate along the lines of the Ventotene Manifesto, which dissolves nation-state." Mr. Legutko, who is ECR co-president, said the European Parliament had developed a life of its own as a result of what he called the unaccountable actions of out-of-touch MEP. He told, "What the report proposes is to usurp all the essential powers of the EU member states, reducing the national institutions to ornamental functions." Referring to the collective term for the federal states of Germany, he added, "If the reform goes ahead, they will have less power than the German Länder." And speaking directly to the architects of the plans, he added, "Who do you think you are, putting yourselves above the member states? You have no legislative initiative, thank God."